established a code of conduct for the OCaml community. So this is going to be recounting the process of how it all panned out. So the beginnings, how did we end up here, right? So OCaml has been open source since the very beginning, right? If you think of it, OCaml has been around for almost 3 decades, and it has a strong open source ecosystem going on. It has a LGPL license, for example, which is inherently open source. So open source and OCaml go hand in hand together. It was started at INRIA, as many of you here might know, as a research project, and it has since been adopted by a lot of academic projects and a lot of companies. And a lot of us here have some connection to OCaml, which is why I think we are here. So this is just a very few sample of where OCaml is being used these days to give a picture. Of course, OCaml thrives in its open source ecosystem. So there are a large number of community projects and a large number of community contributors who are active in the OCaml ecosystem. So the OCaml compiler, for instance, is a collaborative project between various people who help maintain the OCaml compiler. And there are a lot of community projects that are actively contributed by a lot of people, which helps the ecosystem get going. For example, something like LWT or OWL, which is a machine learning framework. There's also a new framework for machine learning stuff called Raven. And for web development, there's Dream, Oxygen. A lot of these are community projects that is been pushing forward as open source projects. So OCaml is not at all new to the open source framework. So we have established that OCaml has had substantial open source activity for a long time, and a code of conduct for OCaml was introduced in 2022, which is something more than 20 years after the project itself started. So adding a code of conduct to a project that you're starting right now is probably a one-click thing where you add a code of conduct.md file and you just get it going. But that is not the case for a project that has been around for a long time. So it takes more than that. And I hope to sort of tell how this all panned out in this talk. So let's first try to see what exactly is a code of conduct. A code of conduct is a text document. What does it have? It has outlines. It outlines a set of expected behaviors that somebody who chooses to participate in the project, in the open source project, is supposed to adhere to. It also lists responsibilities for somebody who is participating in the project. What this also does is it also serves to establish community guidelines for keeping the community going. So we'll see what all of this means in the upcoming part of the talks. Let's first try to address why do we really need a code of conduct. So this is a fundamental question. I think a lot of us could ask, why does an open source project need a code of conduct? So it firstly defines community standards for the community. So if we think of an open source project, we have participants from a large number of backgrounds. Not all of us have the same workplace, or not all of us go to the same school. So we have people who contribute from a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of geographical locations, a lot of ethnicities. So all these diverse group of people interact together in the process of working on an open source project. So the code of conduct document also serves as a signal that the project is welcoming to the contributors. both existing contributors and new contributors. So it also provides a mechanism for reporting any code of conduct violations that one might face in the process of contributing to a project. And when that happens, it also establishes a certain procedure on how to handle such code of conduct violations. So this sort of establishes why we need such a document in the first place. So let's now go to the process of actually introducing a code of conduct for OCaml'. What happened, how it all panned out. This did not start recently. This started at least in 2017, as I understand it. So it initially started out as a discussion amongst some of the core contributors who have been involved in the project for a long time, that we probably need something like this, and what do we do about it? And then a group of volunteers came forward to, in a sort of a working group, to come up with a code of conduct and try to get it forward. The team then formed, they drafted a code of conduct for the community, and it was based off a popular template called Contributor Covenant. So this happened many years ago. Then what happened? This did not really get to the end line. I'll tell you why. So we had a text document now, which is a great thing. But what we also needed was a team of volunteers to sort of arbitrate any violations that have been reported to them. So we did not really have such a team back then. So it was kind of in a pause for a while before we could move it forward. And then the attempt 2 is what is when I started contributing to this as well. So this resumed in 2022. I pitched in to help the OCaml' Software Foundation, who was driving this effort to take it forward. We then went ahead to form a team of volunteers to be in the COC working group. So this was a set of OCaml' open source contributors who have been working on various OCaml' projects for a while. And then we went on to propose adding a code of conduct to the OCaml' project in the major communication channels of the project. We then received feedback from the community, which were both positive feedback on the work and things that we could improve in the process. And we made amendments based on those feedback, and the code of conduct was actually added into the OCaml' project in 2022. So this is a quick summary of it. Let's get into the details of some of these. So this is the main discuss thread where we proposed adding the code of conduct, and as you can see, it's a long thread. So there were a lot of discussions going on this during the time around the time we were discussing this. So the first part was forming a team who were working on this. So firstly, doing this work itself, I mean, being in the code of conduct team is not straightforward work. It is challenging work. It takes time, it takes effort. And all the volunteers, they have a day job. They have other things that they are doing. And this is something on top of it, right? One more thing I would like to mention here is the volunteers are not compensated for their time in this, because so whoever compensates them for the work on the code of conduct team is in conflict of interest with them. So it is not easy to compensate the code of conduct team for their time that they put into this. So essentially, everybody in the team is doing volunteer work. So when we were starting, I mean, when I was starting out, we really did not have a team. I went ahead and contacted some of the active folks in the OCaml' community to ask if they would be interested in being part of the team, and many of them agreed. I also spoke to some people who were quite supportive of the effort, but did not really have the time to participate in it themselves. which is perfectly fine. But eventually, we had 5 volunteers who agreed to be a part of this team, and which we thought was a good enough number to start with. So this is a decent number in accordance to the size of the OCaml community itself, the open source community at large. It is also not too small that the members could get overloaded with a lot of work. And it's also not too big that it becomes difficult to synchronize between the team members on the work that is happening. So coming to being a team member, what is expected in being in the code of conduct team? Of course, the person should be somebody who's willing to do the work that comes with being in the team. So initially it meant drafting the code of conduct and then engaging with the feedback on the code of conduct. But once it has been established and it has been in, the remaining part of the work is when somebody contacts them to report something, and the team would then go on to discuss how to handle that and take further steps. So yes, it is somebody who's willing to do the work and somebody who has been a part of the community and who intend to continue being part of the community in the near future. So we also tried for the team to be a mix of long-time contributors and relatively new contributors to represent both set of people. And that, I think, worked out quite well. It is, of course, somebody who is generally nice and inclusive in their behavior in OCaml online spaces. And we tried to make the team balanced in terms of representation, in terms of where the members are affiliated to, in terms of the diversity of the COC team itself. For example, we tried not to have a lot of people from the same institute or the same company being in the team. The team is also not immutable, it's not constant. It is possible that we rotate the team over time. For example, we had one rotation in the past year where one team member was going on a long break. So they decided to step away, and we roped in another volunteer to be on the team. So some of the prominent members of the community chose not to be in the team, not to be involved in the process, to sort of hand off responsibility to other people, and also not have conflict of interest in the various projects that they are driving and various decisions that they make. So this meant we also did not, out of choice, include people in executive positions in OCaml companies. They are, of course, very nice people and perfectly capable of serving in the team, but it probably could lead to situations where it creates conflicts of interest. So we sort of tried to avoid that. Now coming to the text of the code of conduct. So there are several popular templates. Contributor Covenant is one of them, and this was the one that was the first version based on. So Contributor Covenant is being used in, I think, more than 40,000 open source projects across the ecosystem. So this is quite popular. There are other popular templates, such as the Django Code of Conduct, Ubuntu Code of Conduct, or the Citizen Code of Conduct. So we have a lot of options. One could also possibly write a code of conduct text from scratch, but that, of course, involves a lot more work than picking up from something that already exists. So we have a problem of plenty of choice. So how do we pick? So every community has their own priorities on what is important. So that is, of course, based on that. So let's take a step back and see what really matters in a text of the code of conduct document. So, of course, some ground rules about being nice to each other. There are many ways to write this, and in my opinion, it really doesn't matter a lot. Uh, what is also important is methods of handling if there is some code of conduct violation, whom to contact when somebody is facing a difficult situation in the open source project. I think the second 2 points are quite important to have in a document, and skipping those kind of loses the point of having the document in the first place. It is also best to avoid a text that's too long, where people might lose interest to read it, or something that's too short, which really doesn't cover a lot of things. So now that we have seen the text and what matters in a text, what we ended up doing was we started off with contributor covenant, which was drafted by the first code of conduct team, and we proposed to the community to add this text to the OCaml GitHub organization and other official OCaml channels. We tried to engage with the community to get feedback on what people think about this and in what direction this should head towards. I would like to point out here that it is definitely okay to disagree with this. And I think what's important here is everybody gets a chance to put forward their opinions on what they think should be done and why they think that something should be done. And like I mentioned earlier, OCaml projects have been around for a while. So it's crucial for the community to be on board with this idea. So this is not something one can do in void. So this is probably not something, say, one day one of the OCaml maintainers decides to add a code of conduct to the OCaml project. I think doing something like that probably could be counterproductive. So it is crucial for the community to be on board with this idea. So, to that end, we engaged with the community and we tried to act on the feedback that was received on this work. So what were the major takeaways from the feedback that we got from the community? So like I said, the original text that was proposed to be added was based off contributor covenant. There were some concerns about the strong wording present in contributor covenant. So contributor covenant lists a set of protected classes of people in the document, and people were uncomfortable with this list because it's tricky in the sense that it could be possible that the text that lists the protected classes is not exhaustive. So there were quite a few discussions around this. Of course, I agree that it's possible something is not exhaustive, but I think the reason why it exists in the first place is because people who are underrepresented in the communities are probably at a more vulnerable position to be at the receiving end of something serious, like, say, harassment. This was one of the points raised about contributor covenant. Contributor covenant also included wordings like, I pledge to do something. And that was also sort of making people uncomfortable. It is a matter of perception, I guess. And one point that was raised is that contributor covenant is a political document. Well, it's hard to dissociate politics from really anything in life. But what I would like to say here is the people who proposed to add this did not do it to take forward any political agenda. But I believe what triggered this was the author of Contributor Covenant saying that they are affiliated to some political agenda, and in association, anything doing with Contributor Covenant being in that perception that it is a political document. So since all of this happened, we switched to another code of conduct template based on the ROC code of conduct, which was then called as the COC code of conduct template, and that is what exists as the OCaml code of conduct now. we also clarified about the scope of where this applies, because people thought that this could affect their online activity everywhere, like for example on X or on Mastodon or wherever. But it is really not in the scope of the code of conduct to monitor everything on the internet. The code of conduct applies only to specific places, official OCaml spaces. And for projects outside of this, it is at the maintainer's discretion whether they would like to add the code of conduct to their project or not. So it's really not something in the purview of the team. So these were the changes that were made in the process. And I would also like to take a moment to thank all the people who have been involved in this. This is certainly not a single person thing. This is a group effort from the beginning. And I think this wouldn't have moved forward if not for the involvement and if not for the inputs from a lot of people. So I would first like to thank members of the Code of Conduct team. So there are 6 people now. One of them stepped down and one of them stepped in to fill in their shoes. So I would like to thank Louis, Marcello, Raja, Sean, Simon and Sonia for putting in the work and for being in the process throughout and getting till the end line where we got to a point where we added the code of conduct to OCaml'. And I would also like to thank other people who helped us in the process. I apologize if I have left out anyone. And a lot more people advised us on the way when we were making amendments based on the feedback. So I would like to thank everybody who helped us, and also to my colleagues at Tarides who helped us during the process by talking us through and guiding us in the moments. So with that, I would like to stop with the hope that this added a positive change to the community. I would be happy to answer any questions or talk offline about this. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Sudha. It was a nice presentation. So, any questions?
Thanks a lot. It was very interesting. I guess it depends on the level of maturity from each community. But I remember that I was launching a small event in the north of France, and we tried to have a code of conduct just to make clear that we are a cool community. And it was a true mess because people against code of conduct are extremely harsh about accepting a code of conduct, saying that it makes no sense, we cannot say anything, what a woke community. And people that are for the code of conduct were extremely aggressive in the way that they say, you are just a boomer, please get out of this community. So did you face that kind of interaction proposing a code of conduct in the OCaml community?
That's an interesting way to put it forward, and we did have some discussions like this when we started discussing this. I mean, both sides of arguments. So one argument was that people might choose to leave if we introduce a code of conduct because they don't really agree with the code of conduct. Okay. The other side to this is that people also leave because they are not feeling welcome in a community. People also leave because they face harassment in a community. And that is what we are trying to avoid by having a code of conduct in place. I mean, as for the text, I think it's not possible to have something that everybody 100% agrees with. So we have to reach a middle ground. But like you said, if somebody is against the idea of code of conduct itself, I don't know if there's something we can say to convince them. But if they're not happy with something in the text that can be discussed and that can be worked upon, which is what we also did. So that's my opinion.
Thank you very much.
Any more questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Sudha.